everyone. Welcome to the Film for Fans podcast, the podcast from movie fans for movie fans. I'm your host, Ryan Dunlevy. That is my co-host, Rob Dunham.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's get after it. We've got an excellent show for you. We're going to hit up the box office as we normally do. We've got some news on Tron Ares. We've got an interesting discussion that we're going to reference from Matt Damon, who is on I found this on Twitter, actually, or not, on Instagram, Matt Damon conversation we'll reference. And we're going to talk about double features for a moment and conclude with our watch list. Let's get it started. Box office. So we're recording this later than our usual time, so we're still going to do our thing where we're talking about the previous week's box office. So this is box office from August 9th through August 11th. For the third week in a row, Deadpool was number one. Deadpool made $53.7 million on its in its third week. It is at this time, it was at $493 million. It is well over $500 million domestically, over $1 billion globally. Massive.
Yeah.
It is now the highest grossing R-rated movie of all time, which is, man. We'll come back to that. It Ends With Us was a new release that weekend. $50 million. That's a very good amount for that romantic movie based on the book. Twisters in its fourth week did $15 million. It is $222 million for Twisters. So great job there. Borderlands was a new release, did $8.6 million. So yeah.
Not great.
Despicable Me 4 in its sixth week did $7.9 million. That is $330 million. Impressive. All right, so lots of stuff to pick and choose from here. Give us one or two highlights.
Deadpool making 7 times as much as Borderlands in its third week, as opposed to Borderlands' first week.
Borderlands was certainly hurt by the fact that it did not get good reviews.
Yeah.
It did not have good initial things, and I don't know about you, but it felt like a movie that was trying too hard. I don't know. I'm open to seeing it, and I haven't seen it yet, but it felt like a movie.
The video games themselves are like way over the top. So I'm not surprised by what I saw in the trailers. It kind of just seemed like it fell in line with what I've seen in playing the games.
Sure.
There's a lot of like sarcasm, like crude humor. I do think it really is struggling. I think a lot of it does have to do with Deadpool and Wolverine, because if you want to go see a movie like that, you're choosing that over Borderlands. Because I had the option to choose between seeing Deadpool and Wolverine a second time or going to see Borderlands the first time, and I saw Deadpool and Wolverine a second time.
Fair enough.
And I guarantee I'm not the only person
who did
the same thing.
I had the opportunity to see Borderlands. I chose Trap instead this past week. Now, that being said, I'm certainly open to seeing Borderlands and see if it's any.
I mean, with Borderlands has like a huge cast, like looks like a pretty big budget on special effects.
Kate Blanchett, Kevin Hart. I mean, those are pretty big names.
I gotta imagine the budget for this movie was pretty high.
Yeah,
and it's rough.
That's going to be a rough landing for that one. Yeah. What stands out to me is It Ends With Us. Like, that's $50 million for what is basically a romantic drama. Now, I know it did have a pretty decent amount of hype to it. I feel I meant to look into this a little bit more. It feels like this book has a pretty good following.
Yeah.
And people were excited for the movie version of this book. Now, I'd never heard of the book before, but apparently it's a pretty popular book. Blake Lively starred in this one, and so $50 million is a very good result for that.
Yeah, that's a big number.
That's a big number for that type of movie. It is.
Yeah, I mean, and I know it was like I was watching kind of some of the tracking, and it was really tracking neck and neck with Deadpool for most of the weekend. So
yeah,
talk like anti Deadpool
for sure. If you are not going to see one of the big action movies or a kids movie, this is your movie. Yeah. So, but that being said, that usually doesn't generate that level of output.
I certainly didn't feel like in watching the trailers and reading about stuff about this movie that it was going to be such a big I was surprised.
I mean, I didn't hear like, oh, the phenomena everyone's waiting for. I'm like, are they?
Yeah.
I was like, is this a thing that I don't know about? Apparently it was a thing I didn't know about.
Yeah. My question is everyone who wanted to see it the first weekend?
Yeah, that is a question.
Yeah.
I will have to track with my resident novel literary
It
expert.
ends with this weekend.
Podcast alumni who's been in our podcast, Lauren Klein, is my go-to for books like this. So I will have to inquire with her as to if this is an actual deal here. But apparently it is from a movie standpoint. Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, Deadpool continues to just be monster movie. And doesn't appear to be slowing down. I mean, it is slowing down, but not really slowing down. I mean, when you're still making over $50 million, yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
All right. This past weekend opening was a couple of movies. The big release was Alien Romulus. This was rated R, an hour and 59 minutes. While scavenging the deep ends of a derelict space station, a group of young space colonists come face to face with the most terrifying life form in the universe. So this is another addition to the Alien saga. In theory, it takes place between Alien and Aliens, the first two movies, timeline-wise. And so you know what you're going to get with this type of movie. You're going to get the kind of action horror genre on that front. And the second one was My Penguin Friend, rated PG, an hour and 37 minutes. And this is inspired by a true story, an enchanting adventure about a lost penguin rescued from an oil spill who transforms the life of a heartbroken fisherman. They soon become unlikely friends, so bonded that even the vast ocean cannot divide them. So there is your feel-good.
Two very similar movies.
Very similar movies.
Alien Romulus and My Penguin Friend.
Also of note is this past weekend was Coraline's 15-year anniversary release back in theaters. So Coraline was in theaters for the weekend. Hopefully maybe you got a chance to see that one. If that was a movie of your choice. So that one was back in theaters. Alien Romulus, My Penguin Friend. Did you happen to see Alien Romulus this weekend?
I saw it in IMAX.
Okay.
It was enjoyable.
Interesting.
Talk about more in the watch list.
Yes, we'll talk about that more in the watch list. Yeah, two very different movies. Obviously, the Alien has the name brand recognition. It was kind of up and down as to what people thought about it in terms of reviews or initial feedback. I will give a note that my parents saw My Penguin Friend, and my parents very much enjoyed it. So, for what it's worth, if
that sounds very on brand.
It sounds very on brand. Yeah. It is a lighthearted, feel good, animal friends type movie. There have been many along these lines of genres. It has the fortune of actually being based on a true story. So some of this actually did happen. So if you're interested in something that's feel good and lighthearted, My Penguin Friend is your answer. Next up, I'll give you one other news item. So we've been very excited about the prospects of Tron Ares now that it is officially on, that it has started filming, and we're getting more and more details of it. Of course, the lingering thing was, what are they going to do for a soundtrack? Because after all, Tron Legacy, most notably, had this unbelievable soundtrack, this incredible soundtrack done by the now defunct Daft Punk. Who would they bring in? Well, we have our answer now. And the answer is 9 Inch Nails.
Oh,
9 Inch Nails will be doing the score and an original song for Tron Ares. Now, this is not a deep surprise, given that 9 Inch Nails frontman Trent Reznor has gone on to have a very nice career as a movie score with his collaboration mate Atticus Ross. So the two of them are back on this one, but it is not a Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross score. It will officially be a 9 Inch Nails
featuring Atticus Ross.
So the credit is going to Nine Inch Nails for the score, the whole band. Atticus Ross was there as well to announce this, so he is part of that. And it really is interesting because you're bringing kind of that outside band perspective, but someone who is now well established and very well respected within the movie score industry. So I think there's some real possibilities here. I
don't think you'll be looking at like a classic Nine Inch Nails sound. I think it's something that will be influenced by and driven by what he has accomplished with the music. But you look at the Social Network and what else has he done? He's
on the Social Network. He's done the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. He's done Challengers. There's one or two others. He's got a couple other ones coming up too in the next year as well. So I mean, he's done a lot of good scores.
Yeah, I mean, they've proven that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure, and showed some range too. Yeah, I really enjoyed their scores. Just as a bit of a side note, is Tron Legacy most known for its score? Is that the first thing people think about when they think about Tron Legacy? Is the Daft Punk score?
I think it's what I think about first.
I love this movie, but I have a hard time separating that out too.
But that's actually a good thing. Unlike
it's not a bad thing. It's
some other movies that may have come out recently based around pop concerts.
Here's the question. Here's the question. What other non-musical movie is more known for its score than the music itself, than the movie itself? Can you think of any?
I mean, very basically, I think Chariots of Fire for the famous
great one. Yes. No, that's a great pull.
Slow motion running.
Yes.
Because the movie is not a musical, but that's like that's the sound. Like,
yes. No, that's a great one. I love that.
I mean, I think sometimes themes or scores become such a big part of the movies that maybe they're not the best part of the movie, but they are a huge part of the movie. I think so. Like, three that I can think of right off the top of my head, and they're all very closely related: Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, and Star Wars.
Yeah, classic John Williams scores. Yeah. The question is, are they most known for? I mean, they're very, very prominent. They're a feature of it. You think of Darth Vader walking in, you absolutely can picture it in your head. You can picture the theme for both Jurassic Park and Indiana Jones. But I would say Darth Vader is more popular than Darth Vader's score. I would say Indiana Jones is more popular than his theme.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about this. I love your pull of Chariots of Fire. I couldn't think of one off the top of my head. So I'd be fascinated. If you know of any, you out there listening, if you know of any other non-musicals that are more known for the score than they are for the movie itself, I'd love to hear it because I'd love to get a good list.
I just reference was Trap because ostensibly it's not a musical. It's like a thriller / horror movie.
Yeah.
But the best part of the movie was the music. So is it a musical?
Well, we can have a whole separate discussion like this because there's movies like what's the one with it's not Get Shorty, the sequel.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I can't remember the name of it now.
Oh, now I can't.
Cool.
Be Cool. Yeah. Be Cool is one that's heavily featured. Yesterday is another one that heavily features music. But I don't they're not musicals in the strict way that a musical has a very distinct format. They're just movies with a lot of music.
I think Scott Pilgrim versus the World could be included in that list.
Yeah. Okay, well, we got to move on from that one. But good to see we've got an answer as to who's doing the score for Tron Ares. A couple of discussion items. One is I recently came across a clip of Matt Damon. I forget what show it was a clip of, but I saw it on Instagram. I'll link a reference to it in the show notes here. But Matt Damon was talking about why they don't make some of the same movies that they made in the 90s. And you and I have had this discussion a number of different times. Whole genres that have seemingly disappeared, types of movies we watched, like live action kids movies have disappeared. Like, where did these movies go? Where are the movies that like we love to to watch,
Mhm.
and that were big staples in the 90s and even the early 2000s. Like, what happened to them? And Matt Damon had a really interesting answer talking about what's changed in the back end of the business. And to kind of summarize it a little bit, he points to DVDs. The sale of DVDs was a huge deal. And basically, he was saying that there was less pressure for movies to have to make all their money in the theaters because they knew 6 months later when the DVD came out, it was like dropping a whole new release in theaters again, because people would flock in, they would buy the DVD. You get this whole new bump in revenue as a result of it. Now with DVD sales like gone and physical media sales gone up, the economics are not the same, even with the streaming service. And so he specifically referenced his film Behind the Candelabra. And basically, it's a $25 million movie. He said, you got to put another 25 million into marketing. So there's 50 million. Then you have to split all revenue with the theaters, basically. And therefore, you have to make $100 million on this film before anyone sees any profit. It's like, that's why you don't get the movies that often we got before. And I just thought that was really interesting, because we've talked about the changes in the way people consume media. I don't know if we talked about it from this angle. We've had those two individual conversations. I'm not sure we connected them like that. What do you think?
Yeah, we hear a lot about the term Hollywood accounting, and like, what does a movie actually have to make profit, and the actual numbers of what is thrown into marketing, research, advertisement is usually very shrouded, or really hard to quantify, because it's just not publicly available for consumption. But yeah, there's definitely the consumption model of media has changed drastically since COVID. Like, it was heading in that direction, but that fast forwarded everything by like a decade.
For sure.
And I think a lot of people don't. Oh, I think a movie collection used to be like a huge thing. Like, you wanted to have like a big movie collection, and now I think a lot of people don't care if they own any movies, because they can just find something to watch somewhere.
By the way, you should still own your favorite movies, because you never know when they're going to be taken away or which extra streaming service you're going to be on.
If you have the physical version of the movie, it cannot be taken away.
It cannot be taken away from you, like Westworld.
Yeah.
Or edited, as stealth editing as sometimes is happening. Yeah, I think it's just really fascinating, because it has wondered, like, where does some of these genres go? We know they don't make a ton of money, but there's another factor in this too. Like, one of the reasons studios were able to take some chances on some smaller movies was because of the big blockbusters. The big blockbusters, like, say, Deadpool and Wolverine, made so much money that it could afford to subsidize other movies that were less profitable. Kind of like the way men's college basketball and men's college football kind of pay for the rest of the athletic program in most universities. It's a similar thing between the big budget films and the small budget films. But then we've even seen recently, so many of the big budget films have not been making the big return on payment. And so that's even less of a pool they have to draw from to support some of the smaller movies. So it's really interesting discussion. But I didn't necessarily tie in the loss of DVD sales. I think in part because I don't really know what the difference between how much a movie would make on DVD sales versus how much the licensing to stream something is. I don't know. I'm assuming they're not making anywhere close to the same amount of profit off of that.
Yeah,
they were, but I don't know for
sure. Like we said, there's not really a clear answer to how much they are making from those things.
Yeah. So one more discussion item tap into. I came across this post recently, and I found it fascinating. This person was highlighting the anniversary of Crimson Tide debuting in theaters, the classic late 90s submarine movie. And he was saying that his local theater, when they ran it as a double feature. And they ran it as a double feature with The Hunt for Red October. And the post basically wonders, like, this is a great idea, why do they not lean more into this concept
Talk
of
about your deep dives.
the double features?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Why did they not lean more into the idea of double features? So I thought we'd talk about this from a couple of standpoints. We can do a brief line too on what we think about the idea of a double feature. Then I thought we'd have some fun with this and talk about some of the movies we've watched recently and what we would pair them with if they were a double feature in theaters. So just give a line or two about double features themselves.
So, I mean, I love the concept of a double feature. Having been a regular attendee of drive-in theaters, because that happens a lot at drive-ins that still exist.
Yeah, that is a mainstay of drive-ins.
At the point drive-in which no longer exists near my parents' house in Northumberland, they actually had 3 different screens. They would show 3 different double features of current movies. So I remember the one time we saw Iron Man 3 and Godzilla, I think, back to back, the newer Godzilla movie. That was pretty cool. And then you could have classic combinations like there's Mahoning Valley Drive-In in Lehighton, which still exists. Every year they show Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and Wizard of Oz back to back. Coming up here the next weekend they're showing Aladdin and the Lion King back to back. I know they regularly have like horror festivals where they'll show like 4 or 5 terrible horror movies all together over a weekend. And you can actually camp out there over the night in between and stay there to watch like all the movies on back-to-back nights if you feel so inclined.
That's interesting.
Which is a really cool thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the whole concept of making it an entire evening.
Yeah.
I'm there for that. But I don't know if general audiences, if that's too much.
I think it's a worthy experiment. Basically, the only time you see anything like this in a regular theater is when they were doing like the massive, like giant Marvel, like play the whole MCU up leading up to Endgame, where you were there for like 2 days and it was like all of this type of stuff. They do that occasionally, but not like a standard, just like here's a double feature. And I think it would be fascinating if they experimented with this.
And then last year, obviously, we saw people making their own out of Barbie and Oppenheimer and finding ways to make the show times work for them so they can do that.
Absolutely.
That was one of those people, and it was a great time.
So I wonder if there's not an opportunity there. But I thought, let's have a little fun with this. Let's take a couple of the movies we've individually seen recently and pair them with a double feature. So you want me to go first? You can go for it.
So I just saw Alien Romulus, and I was thinking pairing that with Prometheus as 2 alien movies that are not necessarily tied directly to the like Hallmark cast that you know from Alien, but that some people really love and some people really hate.
Yeah.
And just put them together and let people sort their feelings out for themselves.
Yeah.
But for the record, I really like both of
them. The first one I recently saw was Mystery Alaska. It's about a local Alaskan hockey team, and they end up getting to play the New York Rangers. So I figured there were 2 movies that you could potentially pair this with. One obviously is Miracle, where the local 1980 hockey college Olympic kids from the U.S. playing the professional Soviet Russian team. Or if you want to go on a similar genre but different sport, you go with Hoosiers, like the classic of the genre of the underdog going up against the big boys. So that's my first one.
Another one I have that's sports related. I haven't really seen either of these movies like super recently, but I was just thinking about it. Movies that are satire that are slowly turning into documentaries and making me very sad. Idiocracy and Basketball.
Oh,
double feature.
Okay.
We call that the feel bad about the world double feature.
I like it. I like it. My next one up, I saw Trapped this weekend, and I would pair it with it's almost like a locked room mystery type of deal. So I thought 2 different angles there. One was Collateral, I thought would be a good pairing for it. So you have the bad guy, and he's somewhat trapped in his situation, but the other driver is trapped in the situation with this guy, and he doesn't know what to do with it, and they're trying to navigate it the whole time, which is a similar feeling to what the feeling that Trap gives you. And the other one I thought of, which is a little more straightforward, would be Saw, where you know they're in a room, they're in together, they're trying to figure a way out, and they don't know entirely what's going on. So those are the two that I initially thought of that I might want to pair with Trap.
And I also, for one that's like out there and is really popular right now, Deadpool and Wolverine, I think I'd pair with Logan.
Yeah.
Just to give people the context of a lot of what is made fun of in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
But like start with Logan because that's the real serious one, and have everyone feeling just awful and terrible, and then follow it up with Deadpool and Wolverine so they can laugh. Yeah, that was kind of the order I did Oppenheimer and Barbie. If I had seen Barbie first, I think I would have been depressed for a week if I saw Oppenheimer after that.
And speaking of Oppenheimer, that was the third movie I saw this week. So what I would pair with, and I think it's a perfect pairing, would be The Imitation Game. Because it's kind of a biopic about a very flawed guy who was instrumental to the effort of the Allies trying to win World War II. In one case, it was the development of the atom bomb. In the other case, it was the breaking of the Enigma code machines. And so I think they'd be a perfect pairing in terms of dovetailing with two people at two different sides who were instrumental to the same conflict in two similar genres.
Yeah, so like that.
Yeah. Oh, that was cool. I like it. I think there should be more double features.
Yes.
All right. So we'll wrap up today with our watch list, movies we watched over the last week and what we thought of them. Rob.
So I saw Deadpool and Wolverine twice. I like this movie quite a bit more than I was anticipating.
Interesting.
Liking it.
Yeah.
I was skeptical. I know that I've enjoyed the Deadpool movies before, but I also know they're like extreme.
They are extreme
in every way. But I think Hugh Jackman makes this movie like it just takes it to another level. Because to me, it was full of the rude, crude humor and violence, but there were some real, actual, serious moments in it, and a lot of that centered around his character. And the reason why this works is because the Logan character, Wolverine's character, is the opposite of Deadpool. So you're pairing two opposites together. So there is a little bit of counterbalance, like eating a sweet dessert and pairing it with bitter coffee or bitter tea, you know? Like that kind of thing works well together. And I think that's the reason why this one works. Especially for someone like me who's not a big Deadpool fan. It works for that reason, I think, because there is a little bit of counterbalance to it. It's still over the top, like to a ridiculous extent. If you're listening to this is a spoiler alert, so I'm going to say my favorite part of Deadpool and Wolverine. Have you seen?
I've seen it.
Okay. So my favorite part, and by far, this is objectively the best part of the movie. Okay. So I don't care what you say.
All right. What do you got?
Wesley Snipes showing up as Blade. I don't think I've ever been happier. And when he said, "There's only one Blade, and there's only ever going to be one Blade," given how much nonsense this remake of Blade has gone through, to the point where they're trying to write a script for a PG-13 Blade, which after watching the 2 minutes he was in this movie, I'm convinced of the fact that there should never be a PG-13 Blade and that Wesley Snipes could play Blade right now.
Oh, absolutely.
So why aren't they making another Blade movie with Wesley Snipes? Because he's still got it.
I think in general, the best part of it was the not so subtle digs at failed movies, bad studio management, all those type of things. It was just fantastic.
And we talked about how going into it, you're like, what are they gonna how are they gonna explain all this stuff?
Yeah.
Like, people don't know what the time variance authority is. Like, people don't know what the void is. Like, how are they gonna understand this? And I love when Deadpool's just like, oh, Eliath, the monster from Loki season 1, episode 7. Like they're very self-aware of all of this.
Yeah.
Which I think that's the whole point. Like the self-awareness through the entire movie is what made some of the funniest things from the movie. For sure. The making fun of the ridiculousness with Fantastic Four every time. Did you catch how many subtle and not so subtle references to
the Mad Max movies.
Mhm.
Like I was like, where is that coming from? Like I get all the other references, and like they're really leaning into the Mad Max stuff here.
And
it's really
I did
fascinating.
love Chris Evans showing up and him expecting him to be Captain America and actually being Johnny Storm. That was so good.
Yeah, that was really good. I did enjoy that.
Flame on, what?
It was very entertaining. It was a very entertaining movie. I still feel like Marvel is suffering from the where are they going? We don't know. We didn't feel like we got. I mean, I'm sure there's pieces of this that they will use for sure.
Yeah.
But in the first 3 phases of Marvel, you always had a sense of where they were going next. You just don't now, and we still don't.
Yeah.
Frankly. And there's always a sense like in some cases it was true, in some cases it wasn't, where you're thinking as you're watching the movie, if for someone like me who's not gotten heavily into the TV shows, it's like, okay, is there something I'm missing? It feels like there's something I'm missing. So you don't know at times if like they're going to explain something later in the movie and you're not supposed to know, or if this is something coming from a TV show and you're actually supposed to know.
But I do think for all those things, like I think one of the reasons why the movie's succeeding so much is that it's able to stand on its own.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to have seen any superhero movies to enjoy this movie.
It helps though.
Yeah, it does.
Like half the humor is related to other movies.
You just need a friend who can explain some things to you.
So you won't get if you didn't see any of the Marvel movies, it won't be as funny. But if you've seen at least some of the major ones, like you will understand. You'll get it.
Very quickly. I also saw Alien Romulus.
Yes,
I saw it in IMAX, King of Prussia. The whole first minute of the movie is just a silent pan over a spaceship in space, which that would have been cool in IMAX. Amazing.
Yeah.
And I like this movie. I give it a 9 out of 10. One of the better movies I've seen this year. It will be in my top 10.
Interesting.
But I could see how some people might not love it. But then again, some people don't love Prometheus, and I love Prometheus. So
there you go.
They can be wrong.
So the other one I'll reference real quickly is I watched Trap. Have you seen Trap?
I saw Trap.
Okay.
And my opinion of Trap was that the best part of it was the music, and it wasn't a musical.
It was interesting because isn't his daughter one who wrote most of those songs?
Well, his daughter
is the artist. Yeah. So that's really fascinating too. That's really because she did a really good job with that.
So his one daughter is the artist, and Trap's other daughter is the person who directed the other movie that came out. The Watchers.
The Watchers. Yeah.
So both of his daughters, who are the kids he wrote Lady in the Water for, are now
fascinating, isn't it? What I would say about this movie is, it has its good things and it has its bad things. So like I thought it was engaging throughout. I think the premise is good. I like the premise. I like the way they set it up. I like how they went about it. Everything within the stadium I thought was pretty good. It gets a little wonky once they get out of the stadium a little bit.
I like Josh Hartnett quite a bit.
Yeah.
My main issue with the movie was that there seemed to be way too many convenient things happening that would not happen in real life, because I would think that like a law enforcement force would spot a lot of the things that he was doing sooner than they never saw him. Like it stretched believability for me.
It did. And the longer it went on, the more it engaged in things like that, for sure. The other thing was like, I think it lacked a little bit of character development, and particularly with the like big head FBI person who's supposedly running this. Like you get nothing about her. Like other than if you know a genre, there's always some big profiler who goes in, but that's like the whole character is relied on like the stereotypical profiler that everyone thinks in and comes to the movie with. They don't do anything with her. The other part of it that kind of bugs me is, this is just very minor spoilers. Most of the movie involves him and his daughter. And then at the crux of the movie, his daughter just goes absent. And then they never really come back and find out. Like at one point, this story shifts from his daughter to his wife. And then they never come back to the daughter. They wrap it up with the wife, and then they never really go back to the daughter. So I think there were some missed opportunities there, especially with how big of a role the daughter plays in the movie. But Josh Hartnett, I thought, as bad guy was excellent. He was creepy. He was his charming dad persona, exactly when he needed to be. He was creepy when he needed to be.
I thought he was very expressive.
Yeah.
I appreciated his performance.
So, and I think it fits with where M. Night Shyamalan is now. His movies are good, not great. And I think this movie was perfectly in line with that. It's entertaining, it's engaging, it's good, but it's not great.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the soundtrack's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it
reminded me of 90s R&B.
Yeah, it's got that kind of like obviously upbeat brand of pop.
Like that his daughter definitely listened to Christina Aguilera. You can hear it.
So yeah, very well done, especially with the fact that like it's his daughter that's doing that stuff. Yeah, it's really well done. So all right, everyone, that is the show. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Make sure you visit filmforfans.com, like, subscribe, tell your friends, pass along the podcast, and all that good stuff. Until next time, enjoy the movies.